The morning shift alarm echoed through New Geneva Station as Dr. Sarah Chen floated through the main corridor. Her daughter Kira swam beside her in the low-gravity section, her blue-scaled skin shimmering under the artificial lights. The young Zilani girl had been with Sarah for 8 years now, ever since the war on her home planet had left her an orphan. "Mom, can we visit the observation deck after your work?" Kira asked in her musical voice. Her large golden eyes sparkled with excitement. "The teacher said we can see 3 different star systems today." Sarah smiled and ruffled the small fins on top of Kira's head. "Of course, little fish. But first, you need to go to school." New Geneva Station was home to 12,000 beings from 15 different species. Humans lived and worked alongside the tall, graceful Etherians, the rock-like Gornathi, and dozens of other alien races. The station orbited a neutral world called Kepler 438b, far from any single government's control. It was a symbol of what the galaxy could be when everyone worked together. The Galactic Cooperative had been humanity's greatest achievement. After years of careful talks and shared technology, Earth had earned its place among the stars. Humans were known for 3 things. They could adapt to almost any environment. They formed strong emotional bonds with other species. And they had a strange habit of adopting alien children as their own. Sarah was not unusual. Thousands of human families had taken in orphaned alien children from various wars and disasters. It was just something humans did. When they saw a child in need, they helped. It didn't matter what planet the child came from or how many arms or eyes they had. As Sarah reached her laboratory, she waved goodbye to Kira and watched her daughter swim toward the education section. The lab was her pride and joy. Here, she studied how different alien species could live together safely. Her research had helped create the air and water systems that let so many different beings share the same space. Her research partner, Dr. Vex Hai, was already working at his station. The insectoid scientist's 4 arms moved quickly over multiple displays at once. His compound eyes reflected the data streams as he processed information faster than any human could. "Good morning, Sarah," he clicked in, accented Standard Galactic. The new atmospheric data from the Kepler system arrived overnight. "The results are very promising." "Excellent," Sarah replied, pulling up her own workstation. "If this works, we might be able to terraform 3 more worlds for the refugee populations." The galaxy was not a completely peaceful place. There were still wars, natural disasters, and conflicts that created millions of refugees. New Geneva Station and dozens like it served as research centers and safe havens for those who had nowhere else to go. Sarah had been working for 2 hours when her assistant, a young human named David Park, rushed into the lab. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this. Long-range sensors are picking up something big coming out of quantum fold space." Sarah frowned. Scheduled ships always announce their arrival days in advance. "How big?" "Really big. Like, entire fleet big." Dr. Vex Hai's antennae twitched with concern. "Are there any identification signals?" David shook his head. "Nothing. And they're not responding to our standard welcome messages." Sarah felt a cold feeling in her stomach. She had heard stories from her grandfather about what happened when unknown fleets appeared without warning. He had fought in the last human war, decades before Earth joined the cooperative. He used to tell her that humans were lucky to have found peace among the stars. "Alert Station Commander Martinez immediately," she ordered. "And activate the emergency protocols." The 3 of them rushed to the main observation deck. Through the massive transparent aluminum windows, they could see space around Kepler 438b. At first, everything looked normal. The planet's blue and green surface rotated slowly below them. The local star cast its warm light across the system. Then they saw them. Ships began appearing out of the dark folds in space itself. Not just a few ships, but dozens. Then hundreds. They were massive, angular vessels that looked like they were built for war rather than exploration. Black metal hulls absorbed the starlight, making them appear as dark holes against the star field. Station Commander Elena Martinez's voice echoed through the communication system. "Attention all station personnel. We have an unidentified fleet entering our system. All civilian areas are to implement lockdown procedures immediately. This is not a drill. Sarah grabbed David's arm. I need to find Kira. She ran through the corridors as emergency lights flashed red. Other beings were doing the same thing. Parents looking for children. Friends checking on each other. The station had drilled for this kind of emergency, but no one really believed it would happen. New Geneva Station was neutral territory. Protected by 17 different treaties, Sarah reached the education section just as the teachers were organizing the children into safe groups. She saw Kira's blue scales among a group of young beings from 6 different species. Human children stood next to alien ones, all of them scared but trying to be brave. Kira, Sarah called out. Her daughter swam quickly through the corridor and wrapped her arms around Sarah's waist. Mom, what's happening? Teacher Gornathi said we have to go to the safe rooms. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but we're going to be okay. As they made their way to the designated safe area, Sarah's personal communicator buzzed with an incoming message. It was Dr. Vexhai, and his usually calm voice was filled with panic. Sarah, you need to know this. I just identified the fleet. They're Vaktar hegemony ships, Warcast, and they're not responding to any of our diplomatic signals. Sarah's blood turned cold. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Vaktar hegemony. They were a military empire of insectoid warriors who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. They had conquered dozens of worlds by crushing anyone who couldn't fight back. The hegemony thought the Galactic Cooperative was weak because it preferred talking to fighting. How many ships? Sarah asked quietly, not wanting to scare Kira. Over 300. Sarah, this isn't a raid or a mistake. This is an invasion fleet. Sarah looked down at her daughter, who was chatting nervously with her friends as they walked. Around them, families of every species imaginable hugged each other close. Teachers comforted students. Medical staff prepared for whatever was coming. New Geneva Station represented everything beautiful about the galaxy. Different species working together. Sharing knowledge. Raising children side by side. It was proof that the universe could be a place of hope instead of fear. Looking out the windows at the approaching dark ships, Sarah whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. She held her daughter close and wondered if the peace they had all worked so hard to build was about to end. The first shots came without warning. Sarah was holding Kira in the emergency shelter when the station shook, like a giant hand had grabbed it. Emergency lights flickered as the gravity systems struggled to compensate. Children from a dozen different species cried out in fear, while their parents and teachers tried to keep everyone calm. Commander Martinez's voice crackled over the communication system, but static made it hard to understand. All hands. Defensive positions. They're not responding. Through the thick walls, they could hear the deep rumble of weapons fire. Sarah pulled Kira closer as her daughter's fins trembled with fear. Around them, hundreds of families huddled together in the reinforced shelter. Dr. Vexhai sat nearby, his compound eyes reflecting the emergency lights as he tried to contact anyone outside the shelter. Why aren't they talking to us? Whispered Mrs. Gornathi, an elderly rock person whose grandchildren attended school with Kira. New Geneva is neutral. We have treaties. Before anyone could answer, the station shook again, much harder this time. Somewhere in the distance, they heard the horrible sound of metal tearing apart. The artificial gravity failed for a few seconds, sending everyone floating until the backup systems kicked in. Then, they heard something that made Sarah's heart stop. A new voice was speaking over the station's communication system, but it wasn't Commander Martinez. The voice was harsh and clicked like breaking insects. Beings of the weak station, the voice said in heavily accented Standard Galactic. I am Admiral Thexvar of the Vaktar War Fleet. You have 30 minutes to surrender all weapons and prepare for inspection. Any resistance will result in immediate termination. Dr. Vexhai's antennae drooped. Sarah, New Geneva doesn't have any weapons. It's a research station. The clicking voice continued. This demonstration is broadcast to all cooperative worlds. You will see what happens to those who choose weakness over strength. Your pathetic bonds with alien spawn will not save you. Sarah felt Kira stiffen in her arms. The young Zilani girl might not understand all the political words, but she understood threat and fear. Around the shelter, parents held their adopted alien children closer. The Vaktar's message was clear. They had come here specifically because of what New Geneva represented. "Mom," Kira whispered, "are they going to hurt us because I'm not human?" "No, sweetheart," Sarah said firmly, though her voice shook. "I will never let anyone hurt you." The next few hours passed like a nightmare. They could hear explosions getting closer. The station's defensive systems had been designed to protect against accidents and small raiders, not a full military assault. Commander Martinez tried to organize a defense, but New Geneva Station was home to scientists and families, not soldiers. Through gaps in the communication static, they heard reports from other parts of the station. The Vaktar soldiers weren't just taking control of important areas. They were systematically moving through civilian sections. They weren't taking prisoners or demanding surrender. They were hunting. Sarah's personal communicator buzzed with a message from her laboratory. Somehow, the automated systems were still working. She activated the display and saw security footage from the main research deck. Vaktar soldiers moved through the corridors like dark beetles. They stood 7 feet tall, covered in black chitin armor that made them look like nightmares. They carried weapons that fired energy bolts, capable of melting through station bulkheads, but they weren't using those weapons on equipment or doors. They were using them on people. Sarah quickly turned off the display before Kira could see, but the images burned in her mind. The Vaktar weren't just conquering the station. They were making an example. Every death was being recorded and broadcast to the galaxy as a message. This is what happens when you choose compassion over strength. Dr. Vex High crawled over to Sarah and spoke quietly. "I've been listening to their tactical communications. They have specific orders about human families with adopted alien children. They're targeting those families first." Sarah's blood turned to ice. "What do you mean?" "They think human bonds with alien children represent everything wrong with the cooperative. They want to make sure those families die on camera." Around the shelter, other parents were beginning to understand. Human mothers and fathers held their adopted alien children closer. Alien parents clutched their human youngsters. The Vaktar had come to destroy not just New Geneva Station, but the very idea that different species could be family. The shelter's main door suddenly began to glow red-hot. Someone was cutting through it from the outside. "Everyone to the back!" shouted Teacher Gornathi, but there wasn't much room to move. The shelter had been designed to protect against decompression, not invasion. Sarah grabbed her research tablet and quickly typed a message. Her hands shook as she worked, but she had to get the words right. If they didn't survive this, someone had to know what really happened here. "Tell Earth," she typed. "Tell them what they did to our babies." She sent the message to every human government communication channel she knew, then deleted the device's memory and smashed it. The Vaktar would not get any useful information from her. The door finally gave way, and 4 Vaktar soldiers stepped through. Up close, they were even more terrifying. Their compound eyes scanned the crowded shelter like a predator choosing prey. One of them carried a recording device. The lead soldier spoke in clicking Standard Galactic. "Humans with alien spawn. Identify yourselves. Your deaths will be broadcast as lesson to galaxy." Nobody moved. Sarah felt Kira trembling against her. But her daughter didn't make a sound. Around them, human and alien families stayed silent. The soldier raised his weapon. "If you do not identify, we kill everyone slowly instead of quickly." That's when Mrs. Gornathi did something brave and stupid. The elderly rock woman stood up and pointed at herself. "Here. I am human grandmother to Zilani boy. Kill me first." The soldier's antennae twitched with confusion. Mrs. Gornathi was obviously not human, but she was trying to protect the real human families. Before the Vaktar could respond, Dr. Vex High stood up. "No. I am human parent to Gornathi girl." Then Teacher Martinez rose. "I am human father to Etherian twins." One by one, every adult in the shelter stood up and claimed to be a human parent. Gornathi, Etherians, Zilani, even the insectoid species that looked nothing like humans. They all tried to confuse the Vaktar soldiers. The lead soldier snarled in anger. This was not going according to his propaganda plan. He raised his weapon toward Mrs. Gornathi. That's when Sarah made her choice. She couldn't let these brave beings die for her family. She couldn't let the children watch these heroes die. "Stop," Sarah said, standing up with Kira in her arms. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. This is my daughter Kira. We're the ones you want." The Vaktar soldier's weapon swung toward them. Sarah looked down at Kira's golden eyes one last time. "Remember," she whispered to her daughter. "Love makes us strong." The energy bolt came like a flash of lightning, but instead of hitting Sarah and Kira, it struck the soldier who had fired it. Commander Martinez and a group of station security officers had broken into the shelter from a maintenance shaft. The battle was brief but fierce. In the confusion, Sarah grabbed Kira and followed Dr. Vexhai toward the maintenance tunnels. They had to run. They had to survive. Someone had to tell the galaxy what the Vaktar had done. Behind them, the sounds of fighting echoed through New Geneva Station as humanity's brief golden peace came to an end. In her arms, Kira wept for the friends they were leaving behind. Sarah wept too, but silently. She wept because she knew this was only the beginning. The transmission reached Earth 72 hours after New Geneva Station went silent. President Elena Vasquez sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the Swiss Alps, watching footage that made her stomach turn. Around the oval table, the leaders of every human government and colony watched in complete silence as the Vaktar broadcast played on the main screen. 11,847 beings had died at New Geneva Station. 3,200 of them were children. The Vaktar had made sure to film every death, especially the human families with their adopted alien children. Dr. Sarah Chen's final message played last. Her voice was calm, despite the chaos around her. "Tell Earth what they did to our babies." When the transmission ended, the room stayed quiet for a long minute. These were the most powerful humans in the galaxy. But right now, they looked like broken parents watching their children's murders. Admiral Marcus Kane broke the silence. He was 70 years old, with gray hair and scars from humanity's last war decades ago. His family had been soldiers for 6 generations. "Madam President, I need authorization to activate Protocol 7. President Vasquez looked around the table. Secretary of Defense Williams nodded slowly. Director Chen of Human Intelligence had tears on her cheeks, but her expression was stone. Governor Torres of the Mars colonies cracked his knuckles like he was preparing for a fight. "Admiral," the president said carefully, "remind us what Protocol 7 involves." Kane's voice was steady as winter ice. "Complete mobilization of all human military assets, including Project Damocles. Total war authorization against designated enemy species. No rules of engagement except victory." "That protocol hasn't been used since the Terran Wars," said Secretary Williams. "The Terran Wars were between humans," Kane replied. "This is different. This is about protecting our family." He gestured toward the now blank screen. Every human family in the galaxy just watched their children get murdered for the crime of loving someone different from themselves. President Vasquez closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, her expression had changed. The warm, diplomatic leader was gone. In her place sat something much older and harder. "The Vaktar made a mistake," she said quietly. "They think compassion is weakness. They're about to learn that our capacity for love is matched only by our capacity for destruction." She looked directly at Admiral Kane. "Protocol 7 is authorized. Bring them home, Marcus." Kane nodded once. "Yes, Madame President. We'll bring our children home." Within hours, messages went out across human space, in codes that hadn't been used for decades. On Luna Base, hidden beneath miles of lunar rock, massive blast doors opened for the first time in 30 years. The chamber beyond was vast enough to hold a city, and in the artificial lights, 200 warships sat waiting like sleeping dragons. These weren't the peaceful exploration vessels that most of the galaxy knew about. These were dreadnoughts, built in secret over 3 decades, each one carrying enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. They had names like Retribution, Vengeance, and Righteous Fury. Names from an older, angrier time in human history. Admiral Kane walked through the flagship's bridge as technicians brought ancient systems online. The ship was called Damocles, and it had been waiting for this day since the Treaty of Geneva ended humanity's last war. Kane's grandfather had designed these ships as an insurance policy, hoping they would never be needed. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Commander Sarah Foster, his operations officer. "All dreadnoughts are reporting ready status. Crews are at 98% strength." Kane wasn't surprised. These ship crews came from military families that had kept the old traditions alive. They had trained in secret, maintained the ships, and prepared for a war they hoped would never come. Every one of them had volunteered years ago, knowing they might spend their entire careers maintaining weapons that gathered dust. Not anymore. But the military mobilization was just the beginning. Across human space, something much larger was happening. News of New Geneva Station had spread to every human colony, every space habitat, every research station. The footage of Dr. Chen's last moments played on every news channel. Images of human families dying for their alien children sparked something deep in the human collective memory. On Mars, the massive terraforming companies stopped their peaceful work and began retooling their equipment. Atmosphere processors became weapon factories. Mining equipment turned into tools of war. The giant mass drivers used to move asteroids were modified to throw projectiles at enemy ships. On the agricultural worlds, farming communities organized themselves into support networks. Food production ramped up to support military operations. Transport ships that usually carried grain began carrying ammunition instead. Even the civilian colonies were changing. Dr. Amanda Cross was a xenobiologist on Kepler Station. Similar to Dr. Chen's work on New Geneva, she had adopted twin Gornathi children 5 years earlier, when their parents died in a mining accident. After watching the footage from New Geneva, she sent a message to Earth that was shared across the human networks. They killed Dr. Chen for loving Kira. They killed thousands of families for choosing love over fear. If that's what they call weakness, then I'm proud to be weak. But I won't let my children suffer for my weakness. Neither will any human parent in this galaxy. The message went viral among human colonies. Within weeks, every human settlement had organized defense militias. Parents who had spent years studying alien languages and cultures began learning how to fight. Teachers started training with weapons between classes. But it was the industrial transformation that amazed the galaxy. Human companies that had spent decades perfecting peaceful technology began sharing their research with the military. Faster-than-light communication systems became targeting networks. Medical nanobots were redesigned as weapons that could dismantle enemy equipment. Exploration drones turned into swarms of autonomous fighters. The efficiency was terrifying. In 6 months, humanity transformed their entire peaceful civilization into the largest war machine the galaxy had ever seen. Every human settlement became a fortress. Every research station became a military base. Every transport ship became a potential weapons platform. The Galactic Cooperative tried to negotiate. Ambassador Tavar of the Etherian Republic sent urgent messages to President Vasquez, begging humanity to pursue diplomatic solutions. "We understand your anger," Tavar's message said. "But responding to violence with violence will only create more death. The cooperative can impose sanctions, blockades, economic pressure. We can force the Vectar to stop without starting a galaxy-wide war." President Vasquez's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. "Ambassador Tavar, we appreciate the cooperative's concern. But the Vectar didn't attack military targets or government installations. They specifically targeted our families. They murdered our children. They filmed it and sent it to the galaxy as entertainment." Her voice grew colder with each word. The time for sanctions and diplomacy ended when they decided that loving an alien child was worthy of death. They wanted to teach the galaxy about strength. "We're going to give them a very thorough education." The galaxy watched in growing concern as human fleets began moving. Not just the secret dreadnoughts, but thousands of ships converted from civilian use. Mining barges became troop transports. Cargo haulers became supply ships. Even luxury passenger liners were being converted into hospital ships for the coming war. Intelligence reports started flowing in about human weapons that violated dozens of cooperative treaties. Quantum singularity torpedoes that could collapse a star system, viral nanobots that could dismantle matter at the molecular level, gravity weapons that could turn a planet inside out. The other cooperative species began to understand that humanity had never truly given up their capacity for war. They had simply chosen to hide it beneath centuries of peaceful exploration and scientific cooperation. Now that the choice had been taken away, the galaxy was seeing what humans were really capable of. On Earth, in a bunker beneath the Canadian Rockies, Admiral Kane reviewed the final battle plans with his staff. The holographic display showed the location of every known Vaktar military installation, every breeding world, every industrial center. "Admiral," asked Commander Foster, "the Cooperative Council is requesting that we accept Vaktar's surrender if they offer it." Kane's expression didn't change. "Did the Vaktar accept surrender from the 3-year-old human children they murdered on New Geneva?" "No, sir." "Then we won't accept theirs." Kane stood and looked at the assembled officers. Every one of them had lost friends or family at New Geneva Station. Every one of them had watched human parents die protecting alien children. "Gentlemen and ladies," Kane said formally, "humanity is about to remind the galaxy why our species evolved as apex predators. The Vaktar wanted to see strength. We're going to show them what human strength really looks like." The war was about to begin. The first Vaktar colony disappeared on a Tuesday. Hegemony Command on the capital world of Vak Prime received the last transmission from Mining Colony 7 at 0800 Standard Time. It was a routine production report about rare metals being extracted from the system's asteroid belt. 3 hours later, when the scheduled check-in failed to arrive, they sent a scout ship to investigate. The scout crew found empty space, where a thriving colony of 2 million Vaktar had existed for 50 years. The buildings were intact. The machinery was running. Food was still warm in the processing centers, but every single Vaktar was gone. No bodies. No signs of struggle. No evidence of what had happened. It was as if 2 million beings had simply vanished between heartbeats. The scout ship's science officer found microscopic traces of something she didn't recognize. Tiny metallic particles that didn't match any known element. She sent a sample to hegemony scientists, but before they could analyze it, 3 more colonies went silent. Admiral Thexvar, the hero of New Geneva Station, called an emergency meeting of the War Council. He had been expecting human retaliation, but not this. Humans fought like other cooperative species, with honor codes, rules of engagement, and formal declarations. This was something else entirely. "Report," he clicked to his intelligence chief. 7 colonies have gone silent in 4 days, General Kethvar replied. "No distress signals, no signs of battle, no survivors. Our scouts find only empty facilities and traces of unknown nanomaterials." "Nanobots," said Science Director Zex High. "The humans have deployed self-replicating nanobots that disassemble organic matter at the molecular level." The colonies weren't destroyed. The Vaktar living there were simply taken apart. Admiral Thexvar's compound eyes darkened. "How many humans died at New Geneva?" "Approximately 4,000, replied General Kethvar, "including 3,000 children." "And how many of our people have disappeared?" 14 million so far." The room fell silent. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were systematically erasing Vaktar civilization. Colony by colony. World by world. They were making the hegemony disappear. "Where is their fleet?" Thexvar demanded. "How are they reaching our colonies without being detected?" "We don't know," admitted Intelligence Chief Forthai. "Our border sensors show no sign of large human ships. But our quantum fold space monitoring stations are detecting unusual readings, like ships are jumping directly into our systems without using normal approach routes." What the Vaktar didn't understand was that humanity had spent 30 years developing technology specifically for this kind of war. The dreadnoughts of Project Damocles could jump directly from quantum fold space into a target system, deploy their weapons, and disappear before enemy forces could respond. The Prometheus virus nanobots were designed to work quickly and completely. They didn't just kill Vaktar. They broke down their bodies into component molecules and used the raw materials to build more nanobots. It was efficient, terrifying, and left no evidence except empty buildings and microscopic traces. But humanity wasn't just using secret weapons. They were fighting with a ruthless intelligence that shocked the galaxy. Human scouts had spent months before the war mapping every Vactar installation, studying their supply routes, identifying critical infrastructure. While the hegemony scrambled to respond to the vanishing colonies, human forces were already moving against their next targets. Mining operations that supplied raw materials, breeding worlds where Vactar eggs were incubated, food production centers that fed the warrior caste. Even the ceremonial tomb worlds where ancient hegemony heroes were buried. The humans didn't fight like any species the Vactar had encountered before. They didn't seek honorable combat or try to prove their strength in single battles. They fought like what they were, evolved predators who understood that the only point of war was to completely eliminate the threat. On the mining world of Keth 7, a Vactar garrison commander named Vox High received evacuation orders. His world produced the rare metals needed for hegemony ship armor. If it fell, their entire fleet would become vulnerable. "How long do we have?" he asked his communications officer. "Unknown, sir. The humans haven't been detected in this system yet." Vox High looked out the window at the massive mining operation that stretched across the continent. Millions of Vactar workers operated the machinery that dug precious metals from the planet's crust. This world had been in hegemony hands for 200 years. It seemed impossible that humans could threaten it. "Sir," the communications officer said urgently, "I'm detecting quantum fold signatures. Multiple contacts emerging from fold space." "How many ships?" Vox High demanded. "I count 68 large vessels. They're not approaching the planet. They're taking positions around our star." Vox High felt cold terror crawl up his spine. "Around the star? What are they doing?" The answer came in the form of a human transmission broadcast on all frequencies. The voice was calm and professional, like someone reading a weather report. "Attention Vactar forces on Keth 7. You have 10 minutes to evacuate all personnel to orbit. After that time, this system will be sterilized. This message will not be repeated." "Anyone?" "Sterilized," Vox High whispered. "What do they mean, sterilized?" His science officer was frantically scanning the human ships. "Sir, they're deploying some kind of massive construction around the star. I'm reading energy patterns I've never seen before." 8 minutes later, every Vactar transport ship on the planet was lifting off in panic. They had no idea what the humans were planning. But the cold certainty in that transmitted message convinced them not to find out. From orbit, they watched as the human ships completed their work. They had built a ring of devices around Keth 7's star. The ring began to glow with contained energy, drawing power directly from the nuclear fires at the star's core. "Stellar mass driver," breathed the science officer. "They're turning the star into a weapon." The ring fired once. A focused beam of stellar energy struck Keth 7's surface with the force of a concentrated supernova. The planet's crust cracked like an egg. The mining operations, the military bases, the entire civilization that had existed there for 2 centuries was vaporized in seconds. But the humans weren't finished. They left the stellar mass driver in place and moved on to the next system. Within weeks, 7 Vactar worlds had been destroyed, not by invasion, but by having their own stars turned against them. The psychological effect on the hegemony was devastating. Vactar were warriors who understood strength and violence, but they didn't understand this level of systematic destruction. The humans weren't trying to conquer or control Vactar territory. They were simply erasing it from existence. Admiral Thexvar finally located the main human fleet 3 months into the war. They were approaching the hegemony capital system with over 400 ships. This was his chance to prove that Vactar strength could defeat human technology. "Prepare the first battle fleet," he ordered. 800 ships, our finest warriors, our most powerful weapons. We will meet them in honorable combat and show the galaxy that the hegemony cannot be broken. The Battle of Vak Prime lasted 4 hours. The Vactar fleet fought with desperate courage, but they quickly realized they were facing something beyond their understanding. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, as if they were controlled by a single mind. Their weapons cut through hegemony armor like it was made of paper. Their defenses absorbed Vaktar fire without even slowing down. But it wasn't just superior technology. The humans fought with a cold, methodical fury that terrified even the warrior caste. They didn't waste time on dramatic maneuvers or shows of strength. They simply identified the most efficient way to destroy each enemy ship and executed it perfectly. When Admiral Thexvar's flagship was finally surrounded by 12 human dreadnoughts, he tried to surrender. He broadcast on all frequencies, offering to negotiate terms for the survival of his remaining ships. The response came from Admiral Marcus Kane himself. "Admiral Thexvar, did you offer terms to the 3-year-old children you murdered on New Geneva Station? Those were legitimate military targets." Thexvar lied desperately. "No," Kane's voice was winter cold. "They were babies, and you filmed their deaths for entertainment." The human ships opened fire simultaneously. The hegemony flagship disappeared in a flash of quantum fire, taking Admiral Thexvar and his dreams of Vaktar dominance with it. As the human fleet moved toward Vac Prime itself, the planet's leaders sent increasingly desperate messages to the Galactic Cooperative, begging for intervention. They offered to surrender unconditionally, to pay reparations, to submit to any terms humanity demanded. But the humans had made their decision months earlier. The Vaktar hegemony had chosen to murder children for the crime of being loved by alien parents. They had forfeited their right to exist. The final weapon humanity deployed was something the galaxy had never seen before. As the evacuation ships fled Vac Prime, carrying the few survivors who had managed to escape the planet's surface, they watched in horror as human ships positioned themselves around the capital world. "Quantum Singularity Torpedo," announced Admiral Kane's voice over all frequencies. "The Vaktar homeworld will be removed from space-time itself. This is what happens to species that murder our children." The device activated with a flash of impossible light. Vac Prime didn't explode or burn, it simply ceased to exist, leaving behind only a gravitational anomaly where a star system had once been. In 8 months, humanity had reduced the 1,000-year Vaktar hegemony to scattered refugees hiding in the galactic rim. They had eliminated not just the military forces, but the entire civilization. Worlds, culture, history, everything. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the most peaceful species they knew had methodically exterminated an entire empire without mercy, without pause, and without regret. Humanity had shown them what human love really meant, and what happened to anyone who threatened it. The Galactic Council met in emergency session, 6 months after the last Vaktar world went silent. Representatives from 47 species gathered on the neutral station at Andromeda Point. But the empty chair at the head of the table reminded everyone why they were there. Ambassador Tavar of the Etherian Republic spoke first, her musical voice strained with exhaustion. "We are here to address what happened to the Vaktar hegemony and to discuss humanity's response to the New Geneva incident." The word incident hung in the air like a curse. Around the table, beings from across the galaxy shifted nervously. They had all watched the same recordings, seen the same evidence. In 8 months, humanity had systematically eliminated an entire interstellar civilization. "The humans request to address this council," Tvar continued reluctantly. "They are sending a representative." A murmur ran through the assembly. No one had expected humanity to send an ambassador. Most species thought the humans were too busy consolidating their new role as the galaxy's apex predators. The council chamber doors opened, and the human representative entered. But it wasn't President Vasquez or Admiral Kane. It wasn't even a government official. It was Kira. The young Zilani woman walked to the center of the chamber with quiet dignity. She was 22 now, old enough to speak for herself. Her blue scales had darkened to deep ocean blue, and her golden eyes held depths that hadn't been there before New Geneva. She wore a simple black dress with one piece of jewelry, her mother's research badge. Ambassador Tvar looked confused. "The council recognizes." "I'm sorry, could you state your name and authority to speak for humanity?" Kira's voice was soft but carried clearly through the chamber. "My name is Kira Chen. I am the daughter of Dr. Sarah Chen, who died at New Geneva Station. Humanity sent me here because I am the reason this war happened. A shocked silence fell over the assembly. Representatives from dozens of species stared at the young woman who had just claimed responsibility for the extinction of the Vaktar hegemony. I was adopted by Dr. Chen when I was 7 years old, Kira continued. My birth parents died in the Zelani Civil War. And Sarah took me in because that's what humans do. They see a child in need. And they help. It doesn't matter what species the child is or where they come from. She paused and looked around the chamber. The Vaktar came to New Geneva Station because they wanted to destroy that. They wanted to prove that love was weakness. That compassion was a flaw. That caring for someone different from yourself was wrong. Ambassador Grexhai of the Gornathi spoke carefully. Young lady, while we sympathize with your loss, this council must address the fact that humanity has committed genocide against an entire species. The response was disproportionate to the attack. Kira's golden eyes fixed on him. Disproportionate? Ambassador, let me tell you about disproportionate. My mother died trying to protect me from soldiers who came to murder children. 3,000 babies died at New Geneva Station because they had parents who loved them despite their species. The Vaktar filmed their deaths and sent them across the galaxy as entertainment. Her voice remained calm, but the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. You want to talk about proportionate responses? Here's what a proportionate response would have been. Humanity could have killed exactly 11,847 Vaktar to match the death toll at New Geneva. They could have targeted only military personnel to match the fact that New Geneva was a civilian station. She stepped closer to the council table. Instead, humanity chose to eliminate the threat completely. Not because they enjoy killing, but because they understood something that you apparently don't. The Vaktar didn't attack New Geneva as a military target. They attacked it as a symbol. They wanted to destroy the very idea that different species could be family. Ambassador Tavar tried to interject. But surely negotiation, diplomatic pressure, sanctions would have accomplished what? Kira interrupted. The Vaktar had been ignoring diplomatic pressure for centuries. They conquered dozens of worlds, enslaved millions of beings, and nobody stopped them because everyone was afraid of war. They counted on that fear. They believed that civilized species would never fight back effectively. She pulled out a small device and activated a holographic display. Images filled the air above the council table, pictures of New Geneva Station before the attack. Children from 15 species playing together. Human parents reading bedtime stories to alien youngsters. Alien teachers helping human children with their lessons. This is what the Vaktar wanted to destroy, Kira said. Not a military installation or a government facility. They wanted to kill the idea that love could cross species boundaries. They wanted to kill the idea that love. The images shifted to show human families across the galaxy. Thousands of them. Parents of every human ethnicity holding children from dozens of alien species. Brothers and sisters who shared no DNA, but shared everything else. Humanity didn't commit genocide to get revenge, Kira continued. They did it to protect this. She gestured at the images of mixed families. Every human parent in the galaxy watched their children get murdered on New Geneva Station. They saw their worst nightmare played out in real time, and they decided it would never happen again. Ambassador Zethkai of the Crystalline Collective spoke up. But the scale of the response was exactly what it needed to be, Kira said firmly. Partial measures would have left survivors who could rebuild, regroup, and attack again. Humanity learned from their own history that you don't fight wars halfway. You either win completely, or you guarantee that the same war will have to be fought again by your children. She deactivated the holographic display and faced the council directly. I'm here to deliver humanity's message to the galaxy. The message is simple. We are gardeners by choice, but we remain predators by nature. Harm the innocent under our protection, and we will show you the same mercy you showed our children. The chamber was dead silent. Representative after representative avoided meeting Kira's gaze. Humanity is announcing the New Geneva Compact, she continued. Any species that signs this agreement pledges to protect civilian populations, especially children, in all conflicts. In return, humanity pledges to defend those species with the full force of our military. She placed a datapad on the council table. Any species that violates the compact by targeting civilian families will be treated the same way we treated the Vaktar. There will be no negotiations, no warnings, no second chances. Ambassador Tavar looked at the datapad like it was a live explosive. You're asking us to choose sides in future conflicts. No, Kira said. We're asking you to choose civilization over barbarism. The compact doesn't require you to fight anyone's wars. It only requires you to protect families and children. If that's controversial, then the galaxy has a much bigger problem than humanity's military capabilities. Over the next hour, representatives asked questions, raised concerns, and tried to find alternatives to signing the compact. But as they debated, reports kept coming in from across the galaxy. Human fleets were positioning themselves near major trade routes. Human colonies were organizing defense networks. Human corporations were quietly stockpiling resources for extended military operations. The message was clear. Humanity was prepared to enforce the compact, with or without the Council's approval. In the end, 38 species signed the New Geneva Compact that day. The others asked for time to consult their governments. But within a month, all but 3 had signed. The 3 holdouts were minor powers in remote sectors who felt they could ignore human influence. They were wrong. Within a year, all 3 had signed after human advisors visited their capital worlds for cultural exchange missions that happened to include detailed tours of their planetary defense systems. The signing ceremony for the compact took place at New Geneva Memorial Station, built in orbit around Kepler 438b, where the original station had died. The memorial was different from what most species expected. Instead of a monument to war or victory, it was a living station filled with schools, research laboratories, and family quarters. Children from across the galaxy played in the corridors where their predecessors had died. Human parents raised alien youngsters in the same spaces where Dr. Sarah Chen had loved her daughter Kira. It was a statement about what humanity valued most. Not strength or conquest, but the simple ability to love someone different from yourself. Kira stood in the memorial garden at the center of the station, watching human and alien children play together among the trees that had been planted from seeds from 50 different worlds. Each tree represented a species that had lost members at the original New Geneva station. A small human boy ran up to her, chasing a ball with 3 alien children who looked nothing like him. They were laughing in 4 different languages, but somehow they all understood each other. "Miss Kira," the boy said breathlessly, "is it true that your mom saved lots of people?" Kira smiled and knelt down to his level. "She tried to save everyone, Tommy. She didn't always succeed, but she never stopped trying. My dad says that's why the bad aliens got in trouble," piped up a young Gornathi girl. "Because they hurt families." "That's right, Pebble," Kira said gently. "But the important thing is that it won't happen again. Your parents are safe. Your friends are safe. And you get to grow up in a galaxy where love is stronger than fear." The children ran off to continue their game, leaving Kira alone with her thoughts. In the distance, she could see the sleek shapes of human patrol ships maintaining their eternal watch. The ships were a reminder that the galaxy's peace was protected by humanity's willingness to fight for it. But here, surrounded by the laughter of children from a dozen species, Kira could see what the fight had really been about. Not conquest or revenge, but the simple right of families to exist without fear. Her mother would have been proud. The New Geneva Compact became the foundation of galactic law for the next 1,000 years. Children across the galaxy grew up safe under its protection, knowing that some species in the universe believed that love was worth fighting for. And in the depths of space, human ships maintained their watch, carrying the memory of Dr. Sarah Chen and 11,846 other souls who had died for the crime of believing that families could transcend the boundaries of species. They would not be forgotten, and their sacrifice would never be repeated. The galaxy had learned what humans were capable of when their families were threatened. It was a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations to come.